What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be talking and exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth. I'll start that over. I got to be able to read. Marvin. Okay, here we go. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who served time at other prisons. We're going to be talking about life before prison, life in prison, and life out of prison. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that will help you knock down some of the prisons you've built up in your own mind. Folks, today my guest is Marvin Cotton Jr. And I got to tell you, Marvin came to me through an interesting route because my fraternity brother, Steve Green, was down in Florida. And Marvin, first of all, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. This is an honor to have you.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be here with you.
So if I'm not mistaken, Marvin, were you guys in the airport?
No, we were at Universal Studios.
Universal Studios. Okay.
Yeah, sitting at a restaurant / bar type of venue, and my girlfriend and I were sitting there, and we were sitting next to Steve, and he actually gave up a seat so that we can have somewhere to sit, and we ended
Sounds like Steve.
Yeah, good guy. And
good guy.
That provoked me to engage him in conversation, and we started talking, and I think we both kind of spilled our whole life story like in 5 minutes to each other.
I love it.
Yeah,
well, I feel so lucky that Steve's a listener and is a friend, and he's always trying to help out people, and giving up his seat is just a testament to what kind of guy Steve is. But Steve, when he texted me, he said, "Hey, I just met a guy that would be incredible, has an incredible story." He said he served 20 years in prison. He's been out 19 months. He was exonerated from a crime he did not commit, murder, and he's doing all kinds of good things. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And then Marvin, you and I connected, and you started sending me some of the things and the information and the background, and I couldn't wait to get you on and for the audience to hear your story. But let's step back a little bit, because the front part of this story, and we're going to talk a lot about what you're doing now because you're really doing some incredible things, but the back part of your story, what was going on? I mean, because one night you're making a right turn to go pick up your daughter, and you're surrounded, and your whole life changes, and it changes from that point 20 years forward. What was going on as a kid? What were you doing, Marvin, and what was your life like growing up?
Well, I grew up in Detroit, which kind of have a notorious reputation for being a pretty tough town, and it is. The neighborhood I grew up in was a pretty tough, pretty rough neighborhood. I was raised by my mother, a single mother, and I think she did the very best job she could. I didn't realize we were poor until I was almost in high school, but so I think my mother did a pretty good job in shielding us from a lot of things. My father, he was a drug addict and alcoholic. My entire childhood and most of my adulthood, he just cleaned himself up a few years ago.
Marvin, with that, as a kid, did you have a relationship with him, or was it just a distance that you knew that he was your dad and he had issues?
The closest of a relationship I had with my biological father was, broken promises. I'm going to come get you and your brother this weekend. And, I can't even count how often that happened. So it was like
Mm.
really a string of broken promises. That was the relationship. So
And so your mom basically just stepped in, played both roles for you and your brother. Uh, I'm
absolutely.
I'm sure she had to work to keep the house and job and you guys going. And I what was did you guys, as far as growing up, you and your brother, did you play sports? Did you do anything, like how did you grow up?
My brother is the athlete.
Uh,
He grew up playing sports. He got all of the good stuff, and I got everything else that was left over. He was stronger than me. Even I'm 3 years older, and he's always been stronger than me. He's always been bigger than me. And he was a great athlete growing up, and it was a lot of people paying attention to him through the little league, all the
Yeah.
way up through high school. Unfortunately, he got into a car accident and got a closed head injury, so it kind of derailed that path that he was on. But no doubt in
Mm,
my mind, he probably was headed to the NFL.
mm, wow.
He was that good. Yeah. But myself, I was more of a communicator, and while everybody else was playing football, I was in the house on the phone with a girl or something. So
Good communicator,
yeah.
which serves you well now. Uh, so let's just go straight in. Because the day that this happened, um, the YouTube video that you sent me is riveting, just the way that it's put together and you being right where it happened. And then you go back to the house that you grew up with. Can you kind of just walk us through where your nightmare began?
Yes. That spot that's on the YouTube video where I was standing, that's the spot that I was arrested in. That's where the handcuffs went on. I actually rode past that spot and stopped there last week, just as a reminder. Like when great things is happening in my life, I
Yeah.
always go back there and go back to the old neighborhood, just as a reminder to stay grounded,
Yeah.
to the things that I've survived, and the fact that I'm here to experience better. But that particular day, I was headed to pick my daughter up from daycare, and I noticed that a car was following me. And I noticed because it made too many turns with me, and I was curious. I wanted to know who is this keep following me. So I drove around trying to find the car. Once I lost it, and I wasn't able to find it. So as I got back on course to go pick my daughter up, uh, that car came out and it blocked me in. Another car blocked me in, and then I seen actual marked police cars coming from everywhere. So at that moment, when I seen the other police cars, I knew that this was the police. They got out, and I remember a woman. She walked up to the driver's side window and she hit the window with the gun, and she hit it so hard. It was intended to get my attention, which it did. Um, and I still had my foot on the brake. The car was still in drive. I was too afraid to even put it in. So I'm pointing down like the cars in park. I mean, the cars in drive, the cars in drive, and eventually I was allowed to put it in drive and put it in park and get out the car. And that's where the handcuffs went on. I didn't know why the police had surrounded me. I didn't know that they were looking for me or anything like that. So I was taken from that point down to the precinct in Detroit. At that time, I know they were at 1300 Bobian, and everybody knows 1300 Bobian. It has a notorious reputation. If you went to 1300 Bobian, that it was something serious, and um, you you might get some real cruel treatment once you
Hmm.
walk in those doors.
Did they not say anything to you about? I mean, I guess they would have said you were under arrest, but you had no idea that this was a murder investigation, or you were being arrested for murder, or I mean,
No,
because
not
I mean, your
not at
day
that time.
basically was normal to that point, right? You were
Yeah,
just
not
driving.
well. Yeah, it wasn't normal, but
No, no,
uh,
I'm saying
um,
your day was normal until they surrounded you, and then
absolutely.
your whole world changed.
Absolutely. And saying you under arrest, that's like I've never heard that. in any case. That's
Mm-hmm.
like TV. The police never say that you're under arrest. They just
Right. Slap the handcuffs on.
yeah,
Right.
they put you under arrest. They don't read you your rights. They do that.
Right.
They supposed to. They do it on TV.
Right.
But um, yeah, I was taken down to the precinct and put in an interrogation room where I was locked in a room for like 13 hours without anyone saying anything to me. I wasn't allowed to use the bathroom. It was literally like a little closet with a desk and a chair in it. And I sat in there for about 13 hours before they pulled me out of that room and took me into a bigger interrogation room, which was more like an office. And there was 3 detectives in there, and that's where the questioning began.
Did you have any idea who they were talking about or what they were trying to get? I mean, how did they pin you for this crime, for this event? And did they start to as the interrogation went, that you realized these guys absolutely don't know anything about anything that they're talking about?
Right. It was a friend of mine that was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a really bad history with law enforcement at that time. I filed a complaint against some officers for breaking into my house, and that complaint that I filed turned into a huge investigation into the department, and it led to a lot of harassment. A lot of bullying, a lot of trying to force me away from that complaint. Which eventually turned into federal indictments where officers were indicted for breaking into my home. That was a little later, but I guess they knew that it was going in that direction. So my relationship with law enforcement was pretty bad.
So at what point did you know that this? I mean, when you're having this conversation with them, you've got 3 detectives in there. They're probably saying everything that doesn't connect. And are you asking for an attorney? What is going through your mind, Marvin? What are you thinking?
Well, I did ask for an attorney, but just a little something about the 3 detectives that I was in this office with. One of them would eventually serve federal prison time for 13 counts of bank robbery.
Wow.
Another one would be forced out of the department for multiple DUIs and being caught with a handgun that I guess it wasn't registered to him or he wasn't supposed to have. And also been sued multiple times for mishandling or hiding or creating false witnesses in cases. And then the third one has been sued multiple times and is currently being sued by multiple different people for mishandling, hiding, and creating false witnesses.
Wow.
So these are the 3 detectives.
What a motley crew you had
right.
to be interrogated by.
Right. So I was actually the only person in the room that was innocent.
Wow. What happened next?
Well, the interrogation didn't last, long. I, requested an attorney. I want an attorney. And, I was put into a cell. And at every point, at every stage, I never thought that I would get to the next stage.
Right.
At every stage, I'm like, I'm about to go home.
Yeah.
So at the point that I was arrested, I'll be out of here very soon. At the point of the interrogation, I'll be out of here soon. When they put me in the cell, I'll be out of here. They actually sent me over to be arraigned um, um, 2 days later. And something happened. Something was wrong with their paperwork or something. So they took me back over to the precinct. So in my mind, I'm like, I wasn't supposed to go over there anyway. So I know
right.
I'm about to go home. And so they took me back over there the next day and arraigned me. And as you know, you have a preliminary hearing. They have 14 days to give the hearing. So at every stage in my mind, I'm like, I'm about to go home because I know that I hadn't done anything and there's no reason for me to be here. And somebody's going to eventually see that I'm not supposed to be here and I'll be going home.
Right. What's your attorney saying at this time?
Well, if you Google my attorney, you will see a lot of articles. Not only did I have a cast of detectives that I described, my attorney is described. The attorney that I had was described as the worst attorney in Michigan.
So you just had some bad luck running, Marvin.
Yeah, it was a storm. I think it's another word that can go in front of that.
Yeah,
But it was
perfect
definitely
storm.
a storm. Yeah. So he didn't really communicate well. He didn't do a good job investigating at all. A lot of the
Right.
things that I wanted him to follow up on or ideas that I had, he didn't pursue. So eventually, when I was in the county jail awaiting trial, um, the they come saying that they have a jailhouse informant witness. This was 4 days before trial.
Okay.
So when I eventually get the statement and I read this statement, I tell my attorney, I'm like, this did not happen. I don't know who this person is. This didn't happen. Um, so we go to court, and I was able to show some documents that um, what this jailhouse informant was saying was not true. So all that happened was when he came into court, he just changed his statement to kind of fit around what I had said to be able to show that it was crazy. But what turns out to happen is the jailhouse informant eventually, many years later, maybe 16, 17 years later, admitted that the police had gave him the information to come into court and testify, and
Sure.
the detective that was on his statement that took that statement was the detectives that served the time for the bank robberies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you hear about that a lot, where the jailhouse informant is also given the opportunity to lessen their time or their charge or whatever that is, and that doesn't just happen once; it happens a lot.
Yeah, one of the threads that most exonerees have, people that's been exonerated, that has been found to be innocent. One of the main things, besides police misconduct, is jailhouse informants is tied to almost every single exoneration, where they're coming into court saying, this person confessed to me, this person told me this about the crime, and then DNA exonerates them. This person told me about this about the crime, and then they find out that this jailhouse informant is lying. So
Right.
jailhouse informant testimony is so unreliable that it's almost a red flag when they use a jailhouse informant. It's almost a red flag that this person may be innocent.
Right, but this is actually an innocent person here because of this. So tell me a little bit about what goes on now with the trial, and how does that all play out?
Trial is one of the toughest things that a human being can go through. It's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress, especially when your entire life is on the line. I was charged with first-degree murder and felony firearm, first-degree murder.
What's your mom thinking through this thing here? Because it's had to have just turned her upside down.
I watched my mother age rapidly.
Yeah.
Just in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, to where after several years of being in prison, I watched my mother, turn into a old woman, just in a matter of a few years. And now that I'm out, it's like her age is reversing.
Yeah.
Like right before my eyes, it's like it's coming back off of her. And I'm very, very thankful and grateful for that. But, it really tore up. When you have the people of the state of Michigan, versus your name, that's a lot of weight, and a lot of resources and a lot of people and a lot of talent just lining up in order to win. And that's a pretty big thing for family and supporters to really rally behind. You know it.
Yeah.
You know how family and friends and people that you were acquainted to and laughed at your every joke, when you had the United States of America versus you couldn't even
it's the most daunting thing you'll ever see.
Absolutely. And when I knew that I was fighting for my life. Michigan has a mandatory sentence of life without the possibility of parole for a first-degree murder conviction. And that pressure, You wake up thinking about it. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. You wake up in the morning thinking about it, and it's constantly on you. You feel the weight of it on you. And I really started, when you're up against something like that, it does something to you. You're staring death in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the extra stress of knowing that you're not supposed to be in here. I'm not supposed to be in here. I'm not supposed to be fighting this.
Right.
So that's extra weight. Even for a guilty person, I can only imagine that trial is stressful.
Sure.
But for myself, being innocent, it was very stressful. It was very heavy. But it does something to you, because either you're going to respond to that heaviness or it's going to crush you.
Mm-hmm.
So either you're going to get stronger, you're going to get smarter, you're going to get sharper, you're going to get faster. You're going to start seeing things in ways that you never could have seen unless you went through that circumstance.
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
Senses.
Yeah, it started happening to me. I noticed it after maybe 5, 6, 7 months in the county jail. It started to really change. It started to grow me.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. How long did this whole process take, from the time they picked you up to the time you got convicted of wrongfully convicted of murder?
I was arrested February the 19th, 2001, and I was convicted October 19th, 2001. So, just in that short time, I was in the county jail maybe 9, 10 months before I entered prison. And the blow of being found guilty, everybody always asks, like, what were you thinking when you heard guilty?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I know I'm asked that almost every
day.
So you don't hear guilty. You don't really hear the words, because your heart's pounding. Your ears are deafened, and you're there, and your eyesight is really as sharp as it's ever been, because your other senses has dulled. So I found myself looking around the room, searching faces for indications. When the jury came in, I'm looking at their faces, and
yeah,
I'm seeing a few of them crying. So now I'm really scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I really can't hear anything, because I'm seeing tears. Why are they crying? Like, are they crying?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Right, they're crying for me, or are they crying about a decision that they just made?
Yeah.
So I'm searching faces, and the judge is looking, and he's looking over at us, and he hands it back, and the jury begins to read it, and I don't hear it, but I'm looking at the faces, and I'm looking around the courtroom to my family and friends, and when I see everybody else crying, I know, like, whoa, the verdict must not be good at all, and it wasn't. And immediately after the verdict was read, there was about 20 sheriff deputies in there, and they ushered me off to the back. And I remember being real numb, feeling real numb, but I was aware enough that as soon as I was placed in the back, there was an attorney that came to the window back there to talk to another client. And as soon as he finished with his client, I said, "What's your name?" And he said his name. I said, "I need an attorney. I need to appeal this. I need to appeal this decision." This was like 2 minutes later. That was my first, like, that's when I noticed that I had an ability to rise above,
what was going on.
Absolutely, to get focus.
Yeah.
And, as you know, it took me 20 years to get out of prison and to establish that I was never supposed to be in there. And so I had to do that a lot.
Yeah.
So when I started winning, I didn't know how to feel when I win, but I knew what I needed to do when I lose.
Right. Yeah. So Marvin, you get the verdict. Take me through your first day of heading into prison. As a guy, you're innocent. You know you want to appeal this. You know that you have to do everything you can to keep your mind being you. What's it like entering into prison that way?
I made the decision, a conscious decision to do my time a certain way. I'm an innocent man. I'm going into an environment where nobody's going to see me as that.
Right.
But I didn't change, who I was. I stayed respectful. I stayed courteous. I built up some very good discipline when I was in there. But I walked in knowing that I needed to become better,
Yeah.
that I needed to grow my mind because the people that put me in prison obviously was pretty smart in order to put together what they put
To get
together
you
to put
there.
me in prison, right? So
Right.
I know I needed to build my mind equally or better in order to overcome the circumstances. So I walked in with that mentality. I remember um, really contemplating that, and I couldn't even imagine what that looked like. So I knew that I needed to be better, but I didn't know what better looked like.
Right.
I knew I needed to be smarter, but if you can think that thought, then you're already there. I couldn't even imagine what
Yeah.
that meant.
Yeah.
So that's how my journey started. My first day in prison, which was at the notorious Jackson Quarantine. I don't know if you've ever heard of
I've
Jackson
heard of
Prison.
stories about that. Yeah.
Yeah, very notorious prison. I believe when it was fully open, fully operational, it was like 7,500 prisoners there.
Mhm.
Um, but when I come through there, it was not that many. It was not that many prisoners there, but it was still notorious nonetheless. My first day there, it was you know people were lighting fires and throwing it on officers, and officers was beating guys up and pepper spraying them. It was crazy, and all this was like my first day there.
Mm.
So I'm laying there choking, trying to get some rest and choking off pepper spray. And I'm like, is this what prison is about to be like?
Yeah.
Is this where I'm at? Um, and it didn't disappoint because for the most part, prison was just like that. I've been to some of the most toughest prisons in Michigan, for long periods of times. And, I can remember like month after month after month, where there was violence every single day. Um, so yeah, prison is a very volatile, very tough place. But what that did is when I'm in tough environments, for some reason, it helps me grow.
Hmm.
So when everything is tough and everybody else is falling apart, I realized that I had an ability to really stay calm and really rise above and think myself out of the circumstances that surround me.
Did you feel that, Marvin, when you were growing up, or is it something that came to you as you went through this particular part of your life?
Um, you know, Growing up, my mother was in a few relationships that was pretty abusive and violent. And I remember growing up as a child and being afraid all the time.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, like I'm talking, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I remember just being afraid all the time. And my mother eventually got into a relationship with somebody that wasn't abusive. And through that relationship that I built with him, he taught me how not to be afraid anymore. He taught me how to defend myself. He taught me how to stand up for myself. He taught me how to stand up for my family and my mother, and even to him, if he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, and that helped me a lot. So I think I took that ability of not being afraid to every circumstance that I've been in after that point in my life.
Wow, what a good mentor to come to you at that time in your life. As a kid who was afraid, he picked you up and basically taught you. That's 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 uh, that's incredible, really, to think about it. You'd seen bad things, and he knew you were going to see other bad things, but he was going to teach you how to step into that. That's,
Absolutely.
um, we didn't talk too much. I meant to ask you, with your daughter at the age she was. How old was she when this happened? When it first
She was
happened?
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 years old. So I mean that to me, I mean, my gosh, to have her that age and know that you're going away for what you, at the moment that you get, told by the court that you're going to go away for life. I guess did she stay with your mom?
No, she stayed. She stayed with her mother.
Okay.
Who did an awesome job with her. She'll be 24 in a couple of months, and
Yeah.
She's an amazing young woman, entrepreneur, very driven, very disciplined.
Beautiful girl. You've sent me the pictures and different things of her in that, and it's just, you can tell she's accomplished as a person.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, always a fascinating thing, because she would have had to have lived those 20 years of coming to visit you in an awful place to visit. And, I always say when people go to prison, their family goes to prison, because they have to live through all those things that you're going through, but they're on the outside, and it's not easy on the outside. So it's always such an accomplishment when you see a family survive that. Because because I think there's two ways to go on it, Marvin. You could have been a victim, and were a victim wrongly accused, but you chose to flip the script and become a survivor through this, and basically take on what you needed to take on to get to what your ultimate goal was, which I think is, it's incredible. The story is incredible, but as you are going through this environment that is the unknown world that you've entered, what were the connections you made? How did you start connecting and living your life there?
I also made the decision when I entered prison that I wasn't going to get comfortable, and I wasn't going to assimilate. I wasn't going to become
such a big thing.
Right. I wasn't going to let the culture really swallow me up. So I didn't buy gym shoes in prison. So you can buy gym shoes to work out in, and sweats, certain jogging suits so that you can wear to work out in. I didn't buy none of that. I wore prison blues. I wore state shoes, very uncomfortable shoes. My feet are still
uncomfortable now. I don't even know how they make those things.
Right.
They don't look like, the funny thing is, they don't look like, if you look at them in pictures, like, I don't see anything wrong. Put them on and try to walk in them for a while. And they're heavy too.
Yeah. So I made sure that I kept myself uncomfortable. And because the thought of buying something that I've seen so many guys take pleasure and pride in drove me crazy, because it was almost like being happy or being comfortable in prison. So I kept myself uncomfortable for 20 years.
I think that whole thing that you're talking about, because if you do fall into that, if you do assimilate, the fear of that, my fear is always to become institutionalized.
Right.
And when you become institutionalized, you get so used to the bad routine that becomes your comfort, the bad routine. And then you can't reach to the opportunity of whatever's good, because you're scared to step out of this comfort zone that's actually really ugly. And it happens a lot. I mean, you see, I always say you see two people in prison. You see people that are making it work, and you see people that have given up. And, there's that famous line in Shawshank where you say you get busy living or get busy dying. That's kind of what you see in prison. You see people who are going to try to make it work and try to be who they are, regardless of where they are. And you see the people who become institutionalized who just more or less have given up and become part of the system.
True. I've been to 14 different prisons. Every prison that I was at, there was always at least one officer, usually more than one officer, but at least one officer that will pull me to the side and say, I don't know what you're in here for or what's going on, but you're not supposed to be in here.
You're not supposed to be here.
Like I don't know anything about you, but I've been watching you, and you're not supposed to be in here. I heard that at and it was always the worst officer that told me that. The worst.
Interesting.
It was always the officer that came to work to break somebody.
Yeah.
And they would pull me to the side and say, I don't know why you're here, but you're not supposed to be in prison.
Marvin, why were you in so many different prisons? That's a lot of different prisons because I mean, prisoners hate to move around, and you have your stuff basically. For me, it was a locker, a plastic chair, and a bunk bed. But to move around 14 times and have to get your set again.
Yeah.
Why did you have that as a thing going on in prison?
I became very influential in prison because, like what I'm doing now, I taught people, I mentored,
Yeah.
and I would teach the worst of the worst. So the gang
Mhm.
leaders, not just the gang member, but the gang leader, I
Mhm.
would pour them up under me and I would teach them, try to grow them out of their thinking, and that took some time, and it took to be very strategic in order to do that. And they didn't like that type of influence. You would think that the institution would like, people being mellowed out and turning people into
Right.
thinkers and, getting them out of their criminal, but they like division in prison
Sure.
because it's easier to control the institution if you're staff, if
Yeah.
everybody's divided.
Yeah.
Um, and what,
Very
I like
primitive.
peace.
Very primitive environment in prison where
Right?
people are divided up.
Yeah, I like peace and harmony. So, I grew up in a chaotic home. My home life was chaotic. I grew up, like I told you, afraid all the time, afraid of noises and sounds
Yeah.
and everything. So as an adult, when things get chaotic, my mind begins to
Just
find
to calm
ways
it.
to create peace.
Yeah.
So here I go in prison, one of the most chaotic environments I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And I found that I was pretty good at creating peace, um, and that made me a threat. And I think out of the 14 prisons, I believe, I don't know if you know what an emergency ride out is. It's where they come get you in the middle of the night while you sleep, handcuff you, put you in a hole, and send you to another prison the very next morning before anybody else wake up. So that happened to me about 10 times. Um,
That's really interesting, Marvin, because you would think, like you said, that the people running the prison would appreciate that. And what that got you was a trip to the hole and to another prison.
yes.
What kind of jobs did you do to kind of keep your mind in place in prison?
I've had every type of job you could think of. I've been a porter or a janitor. I've worked in the kitchen. I've always moved to the top of every job that I that I
Yeah.
that I had in prison. I had some of the most trusted jobs, being the photographer in the visiting room.
Yeah.
I've done that for like maybe 6 years at multiple different prisons, 6 years combined. I've always had lead positions, in the kitchen. I'm a perfectionist, so when I do a job, I like to do it well.
Yeah.
And I don't complain about anything, and I'm not gonna try to make nobody else do this or do that. I'll do it myself and I get it done. So that's always been my mentality.
I love that, though. I mean, you didn't lose that in prison. I mean, it would have been so easy for you to just say, you know what, the hell with it. I shouldn't even be here, and stop being what made you you. But what you did is you had this leadership quality, and everything that you were put into, you tried to make better, which is in a bad world, that's a really good thing. Um, so going through what you're going through, I'm sure you were, constantly, daily, trying to get to your case and getting these appeals. How did you handle hard days in prison?
Um, and I know eventually, you'll meet people that have known me for many years, and people that I was in prison with. No, most people didn't know that I was serving a natural life sentence because I was always the same. I didn't allow my bad day to spill outside of me, because I was responsible for a lot of people. A lot of people were dependent on me. They were looking, at my strength and my guidance in order to kind of
Hmm.
keep them on an even keel. So I
Hmm.
knew I couldn't really show anything. And then I kind of worked on myself by working on other people. But
Would you say that was one of your big strategies in prison, Marvin? Is taking what you had inside you and helping other people in a positive way that filled you up in a way that you
yeah,
liked and helped you get through your time?
yeah. Every time I did something for someone else, I was operating on myself.
Yeah.
Um, you know, since I've been out. I got out October 1st, 2020. People say from day one, like, you don't wear prison on you.
Yeah.
You don't wear it on you. That's because I was getting prison off of me the entire time that I was
The
in there.
whole time you were
Yeah,
in there. Yeah.
right. So I didn't,
Well,
a lot of guys, they get out and it takes them several months, if not
yeah.
longer, to kind of get that prison off of them.
Yeah.
But I was working on getting it off of me long before I walked out of the door, and trying to help other people get it off of them
Well,
as well.
Marvin, when did you start knowing? Because you were talking about a span of time of 20 years. When did you start knowing that things might be going your way on the outside with the legal piece of your case? I mean, how did that all work?
The thought of I'll be going home at this next date has always been my mentality, to the
Yeah.
point to where I was the only person believing it. so
The
so
power of
so
one.
yeah, so every appeal was, this is it. Every rehearing to every denial was, this is it. Every reconsideration to every rehearing was,
This
this
is
is it.
it.
And 2 dozen 2 dozen appeals, and 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 it took that long. But when the conviction integrity unit took up my case, that was big for me.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Marvin, because this is a unique. Um, it's actually the first I had read of it, and I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if it was in every single prosecutor's office? But in this office, they created a special division, which is really like a mini innocence project of them looking at questionable cases. And it's what was the name of it again?
Conviction integrity unit.
Conviction Integrity Unit. So these people decided that they were creating a special division to look at questionable cases. They picked up your case, and then what started happening?
Um, um, Prosecutor Kim Worthy, of Wayne County, she started a conviction integrity unit within her office. It's a pretty revolutionary idea because, as you know, prosecutors don't like their
Mm-mm,
cases to be reviewed.
mm-mm.
And I'm very fortunate to have come out of Wayne County, where this prosecutor was brave enough to lead in that way. So she started this unit, and she put a director over this unit, a woman named Valerie Newman. Valerie Newman is very known in the legal world throughout the country, but she put her in this role as the director. And it was really it took a perfect storm or of circumstances in order to lead to my wrongful conviction, and it really ended up with a perfect storm of people in the right places at the right time in order to delve back off into this case. But the conviction integrity unit is in the prosecutor office, but there is some separation there, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But all of the investigators in this unit is former homicide detectives, and prosecutors. So you have all of this talent with inside information on how the system works.
Right.
And they spent 2.5 years on my case, but when they accepted my case, that's when I think time started moving slower.
Sure.
Things got harder because when you're in a situation like the situation that I was in, and everybody's giving up on you, when people start to believe in you, it starts to get hard because now you're inside your head. You like, I've been telling y'all that I'm innocent
All this time.
all this time, and now people starting to believe in you, and then time gets really hard
Yeah.
because now they're finding out information, and they're getting information, and they were on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're like, okay, people know I'm innocent. I need to go home like
I
right
want to go
now.
home now. Right.
Right. So it took some time,
I
and
can't
and
imagine the excitement from your family knowing after all this that your case gets picked up and they start pulling pieces together of what your innocence is. And like you said, it would feel like, that you're swimming through molasses because as these pieces come, what the end result is. You've always been innocent. How can we get this sped up to get it over with?
right. And it's interesting. I found out that I was going home on a Monday, and I had went out to the yard, the prison yard, where people walk around or work out or stand around and talk. And I was out there working out, in prison. That was a part of my fix to keep my mind right.
Right.
I had a very strenuous workout like every day. That was my thing. And I was coming off of the yard and I walked into the housing unit, and I'm still in war mentality because my workouts is like going to war. So I'm still in like
Mm-hmm.
my war mentality. And I wasn't even going to use the phone, but I heard a voice just like, call home. And I always listen to that inner voice because, oftentimes it's right. And I called home instead of getting in the shower, because you know how hard it is to get in the shower in prison. And,
Everybody's waiting. Yeah.
right. So I had came in before the yard closed so that I wouldn't have to be in a line. And I end up calling my mother, and when I called her, she like, it's over. I'm like, what you mean it's over? And she was like, it's over. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I talked to your attorney and this and that. So I said, let me call you back.
Marvin, I can't imagine what was racing through your mind when she said that.
Yeah. So I called my daughter. I hung up and I called my daughter. And my daughter is the calmest, coolest. You can't get a read on this girl for nothing.
Yeah.
So I called my daughter. I'm like, what's going on? She like, nothing. I'm like, how your day going? And she like, I'm going good. I said, you got anything you want to tell me? She was like, no. I was like, you sure? She was like, what you mean? I said, are you sure? I said, did you talk to my lawyer? She was like, you're not supposed to know. I said, so you wasn't going to tell me?
She should be an actress.
Yeah, I'm talking about she's cool and calm no matter what's going on. She's the coolest person in the room. Um, so once my daughter told me, my daughter, she's a 100 type of person. If
Yeah.
she says it, like, she's not gonna add or take away anything from anything. And from that moment, a numbness came over me, very similar to the numbness when I was found guilty.
Yeah.
Very similar to the numbness when I was arrested, and it's a profound numbness, just like. And I didn't sleep from that day
Yeah.
forward for like 8 days. So I found out on a Monday. I got out Thursday, and I stayed woke for another 4 days.
Oh man.
No sleep until my body shut down on me. But that numbness, um, it took like 3 weeks to start to dissipate, and then it took several more months to completely like go away. So when I first got out,
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
found
tell.
my,
Yeah.
I found myself, everybody's excited. Everybody I come in contact with, they're crying. I'm
Yeah.
talking about people I haven't heard from in 20 years. They see me, they looking at me
Sure.
like they've seen a ghost. They're crying. So I found myself pretending,
Yeah.
because I was so numb inside
Yeah.
that I didn't I didn't know how to react or respond. So I found myself responding or reacting in ways that I thought people would expect.
Yep.
Um,
Oh, I get
so
that.
yeah, but eventually, the numbness started to, dissipate. But even though I was numb, I got out. As you know, I hit the ground. A lot of people say you hit the ground running. I hear that like every day. Um, and
Was there
and
a
I
lot
got
of
involved.
cameras and stuff, Marvin, when you got out? Because it would have been a fairly big thing that somebody just was released for 20
There,
years in prison, wrongly
there were
convicted.
there was a guy, Lucino Hamilton, who spent
Hmm.
27 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He was released the day before me. So,
Wow.
so my press release and his press release was about the same time. So I believe that his case may be overshadowed. So when I walked out the parking lot, there was no one out there but my mother and my daughter, um,
Wow.
which,
Okay.
which I'm grateful for because
Oh yeah, I think that'd be great.
I needed that.
Your own
Um,
special time.
Absolutely. And I told my mother, they hugging me. And I told my mother, I said, get in the car, let's go. Let's get out of this
Let's
parking
get
lot.
out of here as fast
Yeah.
as we can.
Yeah.
So, Marvin, the thing that I watched on YouTube where there were all those people in that Zoom call,
Yeah.
and it's like the official thing that they're saying, you're free. Um, was that like you already knew that with your phone call with your mom and your daughter, or was that a Zoom call that happened as it was all happening?
Well, no, the phone call with my mother and daughter was Monday.
Yeah.
That recording that's on the YouTube video, that was Thursday.
Oh, that
Now
was the day. Okay.
that was the day. Now I talked to
Okay.
my attorney, I believe Tuesday. So my attorney, she confirmed that she called up to the prison. She told me everything that was going to take place. It still didn't seem real.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
so,
sure. I mean,
so
how could it after all that time?
even while I was on the Zoom hearing, um, waiting, I listened to
That was emotional for me to watch.
yeah. You can hear me sniffling. You can hear me
yeah.
sniffling in the video.
Yeah,
That's
no,
me.
I mean,
That's me crying.
I was sitting in my car. You sent all that to me, and I was sitting in a parking lot. I stopped off at Walgreens to pick something up, Marvin, and I started clicking on your stuff, and I thought, wow, I hope nobody's watching me. I'm sitting in my car here crying, watching this YouTube thing. But so powerful, though. Gosh, I mean, just the feeling that they said those words, and everybody's. I mean, I don't know how many people were on that Zoom call, but there you are. And there all these other people are, and it's official, and it's like, man, it's beyond what you see on movies because it's real. This really happened.
Absolutely. As soon as the judge made her statement, and and she said that she wanted me released immediately, um, I got antsy. The Zoom went off. I stood up. I was in a little room that they
Yeah.
have for Zoom hearings, and I'm pacing in the floor now. So now I'm ready to go. Get me out
Yeah.
of this place. Um, and the officers, it's interesting. Um, all of the officers, they shook my hand.
Which you
The
don't do in
administration,
prison.
right? The warden, the deputy warden, the captains and lieutenants, and they seemed genuinely happy for me and sorry that I had been through that. The prisoners, they picked up my property, a whole lot of them, and marched me up to the control center with my property. The officers told them, "Y'all can't do that." They like, "We walking him up
Yeah.
front." So it was
We're
like a
doing
big
it.
thing.
Yeah. Got a parade here. Uh, I mean, it's just, and we need to, at the end of this, tell them how to get on that YouTube piece there, Marvin, just for people to be able to see that, because I just think it's so powerful. But okay, so you get out, and let's talk about what you're doing now, because I was thinking about it. 19 months. 19 months isn't that much amount of time, but you have stepped up and you have taken a role with these people who've been exonerated. There's a part of one of those YouTube pieces is you interviewing all these different guys that have been a part of this project that have been released. I mean, and it's the years that we're talking about on these people. It takes your breath away. But you can tell what you walking through that you kind of are the coordinator guy that they all see as somebody that's kind of the glue keeping all this together as these guys get out and how this project works. Can you let everybody know what you're doing now and the good things that's going on in your life?
Yes, that was actually that part of the video is a recording from um, January, after the October I was released. So that was
Wow.
just after a few months of being released. But I founded an organization called the Organization of Exonerees. I was the first chairperson of that organization, and it was composed of all exonerees, people that has been exonerated, to help connect them with resources. You get out of prison after 20, 30, 40 years, you don't have the family
You don't have
support.
anything. Right.
You don't have anything. So you're building a life from nothing. So I help connect people with therapists and organizations that want to help, nonprofits that want to help people jump over state and city hurdles that they really don't have the information to get through. You get out, you don't have driver's license, you don't have ID, you don't have birth certificate, social security, you don't have
Right.
anything.
You're just dropped, and it's just like a new bird dropped into a nest, and you got to survive.
Absolutely. So that's what the organization, but we've grown. I still sit on the board of that organization, but we've traveled the country. We've advocated for innocent people all around the country. We're doing some amazing things. The organization has grown well beyond what I had thought or imagined in the beginning.
Marvin,
And I
how many people have been released like you have in the state of Michigan?
34 in the
And
last
that's
3 years.
in the last 3 years. And that's
Yes,
one state. That
yes,
is
one
one
state.
state.
Yes, the attorney general here, she started a state conviction integrity unit. So she has a conviction integrity unit. We help Washtenaw County get funding for their conviction integrity unit. We testified to the commissioners there to get them money, and we sat and talked with them and let them know some things that was working great in Wayne County, and some of the struggles that we had, just waiting on the long process. It takes money and manpower in order to look into these cases. We've gone into uh, Oakland County as well as Macomb County. Um, so we've traveled the state. Our goal is to help every prosecutor office get a conviction integrity unit to,
I
to
mean,
really
that would
show the
be
need for it.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously with the results, here's what I was going to say when you were saying that, because with the results that's had in 3 years, if you can imagine what that would be in the United States,
Yeah.
if it was set up the way that Michigan has done the same thing, I think it really opens people's minds to what needs to be done to what's being done. And you putting your voice to this is incredible. And I think you are good to talk about what you're wanting to do for your next step here, right? With
Absolutely.
the political world.
Absolutely. You know, I've come to many different tables since I've been out working with prosecutors and law enforcement, sheriffs, chiefs of police, and really every level of government, attorney generals, and trying to make things better, advocating for changes and to really evolve this union that we live in to make it better and better. Now I'm pursuing, I'm running for a state representative in 11th district in Michigan. So now I'm trying to go to the other side of the table in order to make change from the other side. I've dealt with many legislators over this last 19 months, and a lot of them are big advocates for some of the issues that I'm pushing. But now I'm trying to take a seat on the other side so that I can push these issues from there.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So
I mean,
I filed
yeah, go ahead.
about a week and a half or so ago, and I've been organizing my team and building support behind the scenes and out front. So this is going to be an interesting year. I think that I can win. I really do believe that I can win, and I know with the help of the people that supported me, I know that I can make that a reality.
And the thing of it is, I mean, gosh, people, in politics, we need a voice like this because you've lived it. You actually are so good at talking about what this is about. So you have the ability to bring people together because you did it in prison and you're doing it when you're out, and you can do it with the overall population in the political side. And that's the type of people that need to get into politics, people who can actually affect change, not just to be there because it's a position of what's the word I'm looking for? Just to be there and just to raise money. People who actually want to affect change is where that belongs and that seat belongs to. So I couldn't be more excited for you, Marvin, doing what you're doing. As we get to the end here, I want everybody to be able to get your information on how to contact you. But one of the things I was wanting to ask you, because of everything that you've lived through this, what do you think, to impart to the listeners out there, what do you think is your biggest takeaway from what your life has been and how you've survived it?
I believe that everybody goes through hard times. Some hard times, come from decisions that we've made. We bump our head because we make a bad decision, And all of us go through hard times that's undeserving, suffering that's undeserving, where we sitting there like, why me? Why am I going through this? And that's the point where I tend to connect with people because, for a large portion of my life, 49% of my life,
Yeah.
That was what I was going through. But as long as you are alive, as long as you have breath to experience a bad time, you're in a good position.
Wow.
You
That's
you
deep.
are in a great position if you are alive to experience a bad time because you are alive to overcome it.
I love it.
And that's really my motto right there.
Man, that's deep. And I love that. If you're alive to experience a bad time, that means that's a good thing because you can overcome it.
Absolutely.
Man, that's powerful stuff, Marvin. I couldn't be more impressed by you in so many different layers, but I think the overriding thing is your optimism, lack of bitterness, and to take your experience and use it to truly affect change and positive change. And you could have done so many other things that could have been negative because such a negative thing happened to you. And you've taken all that and that's like pumped you up like a superhero to go out and speak to people. And they want to hear this. This is stuff that people need to hear. Innocent people shouldn't go to prison. Not, and then as many people as you're talking about in Michigan, there's a whole wave of those people. I remember watching, or I was talking to Russ Faria the other day, who was accused of murder in Missouri. And they, on Dateline, they interviewed the prosecuting attorney, who's no longer the prosecuting attorney, but she could still not say that he was an innocent man. She said, I still haven't seen the evidence. And it was like every single person who's watching this has already seen the evidence, and she still couldn't admit it.
Real quick, we're going to the prison to pick up a guy, or his family's going to pick him up, but we're going to be there at the prison tomorrow. He's going to be exonerated tomorrow.
Wow.
Now this guy, DNA evidence exonerates him, and not only does it exonerate him, it shows who the real perpetrator is. Yet, although DNA evidence exonerates him, a police officer went to the judge and stopped his hearing. He was supposed to get out last week. This has never been done before. And it's a lot of outrage going on right now, but he will be out tomorrow. And, we will be speaking out against this delay. He's innocent and everybody knows it. Yet he was forced to be in there for a whole nother week because
how long was he? How long did he end up serving?
He was convicted in 2006, 2007.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah, I believe he was in the county jail for a little while before that, even before that. But
that's just, it really does blow your mind because, DNA evidence is DNA evidence. And like you said, they actually know who else has done it. And they're still trying to block an innocent guy from walking away.
Right.
Marvin, I got to tell you, I have so enjoyed meeting you. I have just so enjoyed interviewing you. I want to stay in touch with you. I want other people to stay in touch with you. How do you contribute to your campaign? What's the contacts?
Well, you can definitely contact me on Facebook. It's my name, Marvin Cotton Jr. I'm also on Instagram, _real_FMC. The FMC, free Marvin Cotton. So
I like it.
I kind of kept that. So it's the real FMC, _real_FMC. And you can contact me on there. My Act Blue account is being set up. That's a way to donate politically to Democratic candidates. That'll be set up soon. Okay. Your viewers can definitely reach out to me and I can keep them updated. They can send me their emails and I'll keep them updated on everything that's going on. I definitely need the support. I need a backing. So anybody that believes in what it is that I'm doing, definitely line up behind me so that I can make some more things happen.
I love it. For those, who listen and subscribe, if you're on Apple, leave a review. If you're still looking for a book out there, I've got one that I wrote called Nightmare Success. You can also get us on YouTube. Marvin Cotton Jr., man, What a story. What a guy. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you can, maybe leave the link to that YouTube video on your channel.
I will do that because everybody will like seeing that who listened to this today.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Nightmare success in and out. Thanks for being here.